welcome to our webinar, How to Use an MBA to Launch a Successful Career. My name is Nelly and I'll be the moderator on behalf of UniMy Prep team. And I'm here today with Susan. She's a founder of SIA Admissions, a boutique New York-based admission coaching firm. And in the past 7 years, Susan has worked with young, ambitious professionals from all around the world, helping them to get in their dream school. So it will be a very interesting presentation. But before starting, I just want to let you know that you can ask questions anytime during the webinar using the Q&A box, and we will take time to answer at the end of the session. All questions are welcome, so don't hesitate. Okay, so everything is set now, so I'm giving the floor to you, Susan.
Great. Thank you, Nelly, and thank you, UniMy Prep, for inviting me to this discussion today, and thank you all for being here with me during this discussion. I'm excited to present. So as Nelly introduced me, I am the founder of SIA Admissions, which is a New York-based consulting firm. And you are essentially here most likely because you're considering an MBA, either to perhaps transition careers, or perhaps you want to further strengthen your skills to continue in the role that you currently have, or in the company you currently have. Or perhaps you are, someone who is entrepreneurial minded and are looking to get an MBA to really, help you support grow that business. And an MBA, honestly, is a great way to make that pivot, to make that transition, and offers a lot of benefits that I'll be happy to talk about in a little bit later in my presentation. And overall, as Nelly mentioned, today's presentation is just focusing on leveraging an MBA to launch a successful career. And some of the details we're going to go over will cover areas that you need to pay attention to as far as this next step in your career, in your career transition, or wherever you are in that process. So let me just do a bit of, give you a little bit of details about myself. So as mentioned, I am the founder of SIA Admissions, and for the past 7 years, I've been working with ambitious young professionals who are looking to gain admission to M7s and top 20 MBA programs. I primarily focus in the US and European market as far as MBA programs are concerned. And essentially all of my clients fall within that category. And these are individuals who are really, who have amazing experiences, but sometimes struggle to convey their strengths and what makes them stand out, what makes their experiences unique. Oftentimes as human beings, we tend to forget that we bring value. We're always searching and chasing for that, the thing that we do not have. We are not yet that executive. We're not yet in that, we don't have yet that entrepreneurship ventures that we dream about. And this is an opportunity, an MBA is an opportunity to reflect on where you have come from, what experiences that you have had, how those experiences have shaped who you are. And one of my strengths as a coach is to pay close attention to those stories, to those narratives and experiences that have shaped my clients, and help them convey those in a language that the target institution is interested in hearing. This approach results in clients presenting a genuine application that highlights unique experiences that makes their application stand out. And over the past 7 years, I've had a above 90% placement rate, which means that about 9 out of 10 of my clients gain admission to at least one of their target programs. So hopefully that gives you kind of an overview of my background, and happy to answer any questions that you have related to this, which brings me to the next point. I will be presenting for the next about 30 minutes, and during this time, if you have any questions during any slide or any part of my presentation, please feel free to write your question in the chat and I will answer. Nelly will help me answer the question after the presentation. And if you are interested in having a conversation with me and talking about how I can be of support in your MBA journey and your career, I'm happy to have a conversation and explore ways that, that I can be of support in this process. So with that said, let's talk about why we're all here. So what are some of the benefits of an MBA program? One of the things that I really value in an MBA program is just how dynamic the culture, just how dynamic the environment is, not even the culture, just the environment in an MBA program is. Overall, an MBA class constitutes of students with about 5 years of professional post-undergraduate work experience before they start the MBA program. This means that they have had some real-world experience that they're bringing to the classroom and bringing to the discussion. And schools spend a lot of time to put together a diverse classroom, not just diversity in nationalities, but also diversity in experiences. While the majority of the class comes from an academic background in business, economics, engineering, math, and sciences, you will see quite a bit, as you see here on this on the Wharton slide. You will see that there's quite a few humanities and social sciences majors that come into the MBA program. So this is not necessarily if you don't have a undergraduate background in business, or if you're not an engineer, it does not mean that you cannot pursue an MBA. The school does welcome real diversity of experiences and backgrounds. And aside from the academics, obviously, students in an MBA program have a variety of different professional experiences that makes the classroom so dynamic. These are, students who come from consulting background, from finance, from technology. Perhaps you have, military, veterans, real estate professionals, healthcare professionals, retail professionals, and even, people have worked in restaurants, which is one would consider that these types of candidates as non-traditional. This really brings a collective of students' experiences together where everyone is going to learn from one another, which is what makes the classroom so dynamic. You're not just going to learn from your professors who are teaching you the course materials, but you're most often going to learn a lot from your classmates while you're working on projects, and you're developing your experiences or your skills while perhaps you have a classmate who already has those skills who can help you in that process. Or perhaps there's a classmate who has had the experiences that you're looking for. So, if you want to go into consulting, your classmates may be coming from consulting, and they can provide a lot of insight into the industry that you wouldn't be able to get outside of just being in such a dynamic environment that an MBA offers. And the next benefit that an MBA offers is just a global network. What you have on the slide for consistency purposes is Wharton, but this is true for top MBA programs across the board. Not only are your classmates that are coming in, that are experiencing the MBA experience with you, coming in from diverse regions, top ranked schools also have a network that spans their geographic location. So if you look at Wharton, for example, you have the alumni spanning 6 continents, over 153 countries, and you do get to enjoy that, especially if you're looking to move to another region beyond where the school is geographically located. So whether that's immediately post MBA, or perhaps later on life takes you to another part of the world, and you need to build friendships, you need to help you find a job in that region, you can rely on your network of the school to support or to help you open a few doors or open a few opportunities for you to have conversations and be able to make that transition a little bit smoother than you would otherwise. And of course, the caveat here is that you continue to build the relationships and you continue to maintain network, your network over the years, because you don't know also where your classmates are going to be going, geographically as well. And then the last final thing, which is the one that I hear most often, is, that six-figure salary. US schools and European schools do have, boast about their six-figure salary post-MBA, which is really amazing, especially for individuals that are coming from, especially developing world, developing countries. This allows you to, or allows them to build a lot of, hands-on experiences, have that designation, the MBA designation that has a global recognition, and be able to make that transition. We have seen an increase in sort of overall salaries, as you see from the chart on the screen from Poets and Quants, that just shares how, the salaries post MBA have been increasing with, NYU Stern being at the top of the list overall. So those are just some of the major benefits. There's a lot of benefits that the MBA program offers. And of course, one does not pursue an MBA typically, and one does not pursue an MBA just for that immediate post-MBA career goal and the salary. This is really a long-term investment for your professional development, and make sure that you're doing the right things, you're gaining the right training, so that you can achieve that vision that you have for impact in your long-term career. Now, when we think about MBA applicants, and they typically fall into these three categories of applicant pool. So one of those categories is people who want to stay within the industry that they're part of, but want to grow in scope of responsibilities. Then we have those who are looking to transition careers altogether, whether that is the industry, job function, or geography. And typically, I'll talk more about this, but typically you typically only want to do two. And then those who want to be entrepreneurs, or those that have already started on entrepreneurship or an entrepreneurial venture and are looking to gain the skills. And let's talk a little bit about each one of these and how each is set apart from one another. So let's talk about those who are looking to change industries, who are looking to remain within the same industry, but increase the scope of responsibilities in their work. So for example, I had a client who was in the energy space and looked to gain an MBA and gain the skills and experiences to support him bringing innovation to his workplace. And this led him to greater exposure of the organization. Now, this happened at this company he was working for was a global player in the energy space, and he was able to gain a lot more exposure through an MBA that allowed him to, play a bigger role within the global operations of this energy company. And of course, he has a long-term ambition to have a C-suite role. But the MBA is helping him move in that direction towards that C-suite role in gaining the skills that he needed to gain before he made that transition. So if you really like your job and you know that an MBA would be valuable in helping you bring perhaps innovation to your workplace, then start evaluating how an MBA can support you in that next step in your career, so that you can be moving up the leadership ladder, if you will, and gain the experiences that you want. This can be, you staying in the same company or staying within the same industry in the same job function, but moving to a different company that perhaps is a little bit more competitive than the one that you're currently at. Excuse me. The next category is the individuals who have a startup, who are looking to have a startup, and need an MBA to help in a variety of different ways. So if you fall into any of these categories, you perhaps are looking to gain the insights and the resources and the network to support your company's growth, whether that is, that initial idea stage or it's already an established organization, then an MBA can be really a great place where you have a dynamic student body that can help you gain the experiences that you need. One element that I would caution anyone that is thinking about entrepreneurship, especially if you have not already established your venture, is to make sure that if you are presenting entrepreneurship as your goal for an MBA, be mindful that you need to have a history of having had exposure to an entrepreneurship, having had exposure to the startup space. In most cases, without that history, schools are not really comfortable offering admission to applicants who have those ambitions, perhaps don't have an idea yet, and are looking for the MBA to have that idea kind of, generated and make sure that it's polished. There needs to be some sort of evidence that you will be able to do that from an MBA admissions perspective. There's an exception, of course, and one of the schools that comes to mind is Stanford's GSB. There, they do love entrepreneurs that have ideas, that come with ideas into the MBA program. And if you don't have some exposure to entrepreneurship, schools, like I said, find it really difficult to believe that they'll be able to teach you all the elements. However, if you do have some basic understanding of some basic exposure of how entrepreneurship works, how the startup space works, the school can teach you how to navigate the business, how to build your pitch, how to negotiate and build a network to grow your business, and even provide opportunities and exposure to have those potential investors support your vision if funding is something that you are going to be looking for during your MBA experience. So there's a lot of different ways to interpret how to launch a successful career. And these are some of the three sort of main categories that students would fall into, when they're applying to an MBA program. Now, the third one, which I didn't cover, and this is probably the main one, the one that you see very often, is the just transitioning essentially functions, sectors, and geographies, or geographies rather. And top-ranked programs are really comfortable helping applicants transition, typically in only two areas. So, for example, you want to transition function and geography, but remain in the same sector, or you want to transition to, transition your sector and function, but you want to stay in the same geography. There is definitely opportunity for school to help you with two. They find it very difficult to do with three items, from like all three, meaning changing geography, changing function, and changing sector. There is a lot that needs to come into play in helping you make any transition and helping you get that job post MBA. So schools are going to evaluate feasibility of your goals. So this is an element that you want to pay close attention to. So just kind of giving you some ideas of how people think about kind of the transitions. You can have, if you're a consultant, perhaps you want to transition into the tech space. You're a veteran thinking about a civilian life career and you want to move into operations. you are an investment banker and want a career in social responsibility. These are only but a few ways that you can think about what transition would look like. Now, before you look to an MBA to help you grow professionally, there is very important thing you must remember that you know, an MBA does not offer a lot of room. There's a little bit of room for exploration, but there's not a lot of room for exploration. So you can't, you know, probably in college, if you're an American, especially, you had the option to tick the box that says, I am undecided in my major when you apply to, you know, a four-year college or four-year university. And, you know, you end up taking a variety of different courses during your first 2 years of your program, and then you have to declare your major. MBA does not function that way. You have to go in with a goal, with an intent, and also, you know, have an idea of what you're there for and what you're trying to gain out of the program. And this leads to a very important point. Before we, and this essentially the important point is you have to clearly articulate why you are pursuing an MBA. And before we can expect support from an MBA program to change careers, you have, or perhaps transition careers or help with your venture, you do need to do a little bit of the legwork. The legwork I'm speaking about here is clearly articulating the reasons you are here, here being, you know, in an MBA program. And some of the elements or one of the most important elements of this process is the first, you really want to understand yourself. And understanding yourself has a sort of somewhat of a two-part answer. And if you want to launch a successful career with the help of an MBA, you need to know what you're good at and what you can learn to be good at. Therefore, you need to first know what are your transferable skills. Are you perhaps a strong negotiator, or perhaps you are really strong at looking at problems and finding solutions from a macro and perhaps a strategic lens, or perhaps you are really strong at executing processes. You are really that operations person, or you really thrive in an environment where you're dealing with, you know, front-facing customer service. Whatever your skills are, you need to identify those skills and connect them to your future goals in some way, especially if you're making a career transition from, you know, the industry or the job that you currently have. There needs to be some elements that you can bring to the future career, even if it's not an apples to apples comparison. So you can't think of yourself as a, you know, I'm going to be a tabula rasa. Here I'm a blank slate. I need you to, you know, fill me with knowledge so that I can go and make this transition in this career. That's not how an MBA works. You do need to bring in some skills to the classroom, to the discussion, and then add additional skills to your, you know, toolkit, and be able to make that transition to the next, you know, step in your career. And the other part in knowing yourself is knowing what you do not know and what you need to develop to be successful in that transition. This means that you need to do some research on the industry or the job that you're seeking to have, or, you know, if you are an entrepreneur, whatever your idea is, you need to be able to demonstrate that you have some insights of knowing what kind of idea you have, but also what kind of skills are you going to need to be able to make that that venture a successful, or that transition a successful one. I have worked with you know, veterans without any civilian business experience able to make it into, you know, an MBB. I've worked with chemical engineers without any client-facing experience who were able to move into a customer-facing role. I have worked with waiters who continually sought professional development and are now investment directors at a private equity company, or even consultants for the likes of, BCG and Bain. I have worked also with marketers in travel agencies looking to transition to consumer goods. I've worked with you know, people from the retail industry looking to move into the ESG space. This is an opportunity to really explore what is it that you really want to do, and then forge a path forward. Understand what do you have and what do you need to have to make this transition a success. What skills are you going to need for that role? So it's not just identifying, oh, I want to work in consulting, or I want to work in ESG, or I want to work in strategy. You need to identify what that role is going to be, and then also what are the skills that you need to really showcase the admission team that I mean, this is just for the admission process, but for your future as well, you need to know where you're getting yourself into and what kind of skills you'll be needing. So for example, if you say that you want to work in data science, but you're not interested in a data science degree, and an MBA is not a data science degree, you need to demonstrate in what way an MBA can support that goal, or perhaps an MBA is not even the right place for you to be if you want to be a data scientist to begin with. So unless you're wanting, of course, a leadership role that transcends data science and the C-suite executives, or builds a bridge between the two, of course. And once you know what skills you need to develop, then you have to look at how the institution will help you. So yes, these are some of the skills that you need to evaluate in your experiences that you have. Then you need to identify specific opportunities, of course, that an MBA offers to help you make this transition. And the schools need to have strong career services team who are going to, especially if you're making transitions, they need to be entrenched in the industry that you desire to be in, so that they can help you learn the right industry vocabulary. They can help you better understand the industry structure and opportunities you can get within that desired field. And they can provide the tools to help you develop into the professional that you are, that will enable you to find employers if that's the direction you're going to, or have the skills that when you go in front of potential future investors for your venture, you already have the skills to really sell, not just the idea, but also that you are the right person that they should invest in. Now, as you transition your careers, you also want an institution that allows the flexibility to change your mind, or at least slightly change your mind, where you can explore a little bit and take classes that you're interested in. So you end up graduating from a MBA program with a really holistic understanding of what your industry needs specifically, but also other areas that can be of benefit to how you look at problem solving in your industry. And related to the previous point above, choosing the right MBA program is also having the right experiential learning opportunities. These are, the idea is that you use an MBA to gain experience and exposure to continue building your resume. And that means, you have those internships, those hands-on learning opportunities, those centers that if you're an entrepreneur, you are learning skills to support you move in the direction that you're looking to move. For example, for those who want to work in, in the competitive finance sector and have minimal experiences working in finance, choosing a school like Columbia or NYU, who are entrenched in the New York City community, which is, the financial capital of the world, if you will. Those schools will not only give you the, academic training, they will not only give you the, internship opportunities that all the other schools are going to offer you, and hands-on learning opportunities with projects. Because you are in New York City, you're also going to be able to have during term internship, which means that if you choose to, stack your classes in the morning or in the evening, depending on kind of, where you are in the program, and you want to have an opportunity to have an internship during your, in semester, that's a great opportunity to do that, so you can build your resume and really showcase to your future employers that you are extremely interested in finance and you have gained some experience doing that. These are the elements that you're looking for from an MBA program to help you make this transition and move to your desired career. And finally, an important component in helping you make that transition is, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the network. The network plays a huge role, and there's people that pursue an MBA just for the network itself. And you have to work, of course, really hard to build a strong, meaningful connection with your peers and make sure that you're purposeful in how you're engaging in the community to build the network. This obviously means that you are not just working with peers who in most cases are going to help you along the way in preparing, but the network is also going to, in leveraging your alumni body, will help you make your transition, will help you open doors. I've had clients who've talked about, I've been at Stanford and no one has, ever not responded to an email. I have, been at MIT Sloan and every email I've sent has been responded to. These are schools that offer quite a strong network that are that you want to leverage in helping you make the transition. You also want to be very engaged in your community. So you may be paired in your learning team that's going to be 5 to 6 people that are going to be of diverse backgrounds, different from yours, which that's typically how they're structured for a purpose, because they want you to have they want you to be challenged, and everyone bringing a different perspective. But you also going to want to be in a community of peers who have similar interests like you. So, clubs and activities that allow you to build strong personal relationships, but also a personal brand. So if you are, interested in consulting, the consulting club is a place you want to be, where other consultants or aspiring consultants are, working together to help prepare for those case interviews, who will have, alumni come and have, coffee chats and talk about their consulting experiences. Or you want to work in healthcare and you want an exposure to the industry. You want to be part of the symposiums and part of the networking events around what's going on in the healthcare industry, so that you're building, again, your connections and your relationships, but also as part of course, a leadership member of those communities. You're going to want to use that in your resume to demonstrate that you have a serious interest in this transition that you're looking to make. And I speak with my clients all the time after they've gone through the process and they're in the program. And I had a client tell me he attended Wharton or attends Wharton, and he was looking to move into consulting. And initially going into the program thinking Wharton is a top 3 program, you're going to be, doors are going to be open for you. You are not you're not going to necessarily need to work hard. You're not going to need to leverage your network. That was the perception that people, that is oftentimes the perception that people have. But the reality is slightly different. If you don't leverage your network, your peers, to help you prepare for the case interviews, if you don't leverage your network to help you really understand what opportunities are and what those firms are looking for, you're going to have a hard time landing that job that you want, or making that transition that you want. Especially if you're making a transition, you have to work extra hard to make sure that you have done all the legwork. In the case of the client that I was mentioning, he ended up landing a job at McKinsey, but he shared how some of his peers didn't, because they didn't necessarily put in all the efforts that they needed to sell their experiences to the recruiting team at those top-ranked consulting firms. So the idea here is that just because you get into an MBA, it does not mean that you're done with your work. Opportunities will come your way. It means you have to leverage your network, and you have to put in the efforts to demonstrate that you have a real serious interest in whatever career you're looking to forge for yourself, and put in the effort to build the connections and leverage the network and alumni, not just the networks that are in the community with you going through the process, but also alumni who are maybe further away, but you work with the career services of alumni office to help you make these moves that you need to do. So hopefully that was it gives you an idea of what you need to do to launch a successful career with an MBA, and all the work that you need to do. Of course, this is not intended to be a scary experience, but it is intended to be fun and exciting, because this is, of course, an investment that you're not making just for the immediate short term, but also for the long-term career you're going to forge for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan, for sharing your experience and this very useful information. And we have a few questions actually in the Q&A box.
Perfect.
So we can jump right in if you wish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's see. Can you share a bit more about the differences between an MBA in the USA and in Europe, if you can?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Oftentimes the difference between the two geographies is the length of the MBA. Most, with the exception of one, most MBA programs in Europe are one-year program, which has a lot of content sort of crammed into that experience, and allows you to, of course, make that transition quite relatively fast, moving along the program. Whereas in the US, you have 2 years of coursework that you're going through, hands-on learning projects that you're going through, an internship that you have to complete before you are able to, in the middle of the program. And then that internship also allows you, especially for those individuals who are maybe, have an idea of where they're going, they have a vision of what impact they want to make, but perhaps are not fully sold. A 2-year MBA does allow that, actually, that ability to even pivot even after your first year. So if you, for example, go into an MBA program and get an internship in a consulting company, and after your 3 months during the summer internship, you really just do not like the experience at all, you made the wrong choice. You have an entire year to pivot from that, to make the change, and to leverage the network, and to work with the career services to find you another opportunity in an area that you're interested in. So I think that's one of the key elements or key differences between the two geographies.
Thank you very much. And I think, you gave a very valid point and maybe helpful tip for everyone who is considering either 2-year or 1-year, hesitating between 1-year or 2-year MBA. Okay, another question. Can you talk a little bit more about online MBAs? Do you think they're worth it and they offer the same opportunities like traditional MBAs?
The online MBAs, I'm not extremely familiar with them, in the sense that I don't necessarily work with clients on those applications. But typically, an online MBA is going to obviously mean that you are doing it at your own time. If you're looking for career transitions, not being fully immersed into the program with classmates, learning from your peers, having exposure to employers, doing treks, doing all these activities that are part of a full-time MBA, can, especially those that are looking to transition careers, it becomes a little bit more challenging to do with an online MBA. So it may make sense to evaluate essentially where you are. Now, if you are happy with your career and you just want an MBA to give you that business fundamentals that you're looking for, and perhaps take some interesting classes that online MBAs offer, then there's nothing wrong with an online MBA. But if you're looking to make a transition, that's a huge decision that you have to weigh in. Is you are going to need to have exposure to the network. You have to build relationships that an online program is probably not going to offer as a robust a opportunity as the in-person.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And looking at the questions, of course, we cannot talk about MBA without mentioning GMAT. And we have a question actually: how important is the GMAT score when you're applying?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get this question all the time. So it is important. It is a piece of the application process. You want to be close to the average class profile, that is. But it's not the end all be all. Meaning, if you don't have a score, you're applying to a top ranked program and you don't have a score that's like, off the roof, like off the charts, you are not going to be admitted. It doesn't mean that, or it doesn't mean that if you have an amazing score and that you are admitted either. So it goes both ways. But it is a piece of the puzzle, and you do need to show competitiveness. So closer to the average class for, generally speaking, that's where you want to be. If you are a part of an overrepresented body of applicants, then you want above the average to be competitive in your pool of application of applicants. But at the end of the day, it comes down to really a variety of different pieces that you put together to showcase the admission team that you are a strong candidate. So if your GMAT is not that great, or it's maybe slightly below the class average, but you have attended an amazing undergraduate program, very rigorous undergraduate program, and have had amazing, academics, then you can substantiate. If you, on top of that, have a really strong professional experience, and that professional experience has allowed you to really use quantitative, skills, or develop quantitative skills, that's a bonus. So you always, anytime that you have something that's not sort of in line with where the class falls, you want to compensate in other areas. So if your GMAT is not the best score, you want to have a strong, obviously your undergraduate is what it is. You can't change that at this point, but you want to have a really kind of a solid application elsewhere in order for you to be able to gain admission to a top ranked program.
Great, thank you very much. So I think the takeaway, guys, is all the pieces of the applications are important, and you also try to do your best on the GMAT.
That's right, exactly.
Okay, we have a very specific question here. Do you think I can do an MBA if I have art education?
Yes. The simple answer is absolutely.
Great,
absolutely.
That's very encouraging.
Yeah, it really, an art education is a diverse way of thinking that you're going to bring to the table. So you really want to showcase that. Now, just that alone doesn't mean that you're competitive for an applicant. It means that you have to have a strong goal. Why do you need an MBA? What do you need an MBA for? Maybe, I'm kind of creating here with my imagination. If you have an art education, I'm assuming you're in the art space, maybe you have a gallery or something like that. You own a gallery, or you want to own a gallery, and you want an MBA how to build a business. that is a great opportunity to do that because it will help you round out your art experience and art education to really build a successful business for yourself. So that's definitely the answer is yes.
Thank you for this positive answer. We have one question left and still time, guys. If you want to ask anything else, now is the perfect moment.
Perfect.
Okay. Do you think 6 months is enough to prepare my MBA application? Is it okay to apply during the second or third round of application?
Yeah. The simple answer to the first part of the question is yes, typically 6 months is a good amount of time. However, there's a caveat there that it depends on how your work schedule is. So you can have a year and not enough time to, put together your applications if you don't have a lot of time out of work to do the work that you need to do. So typically, though, 6 months is enough time in that, provided that you're, of course, budgeting your time to focus on the GMAT, to focus on the application preparation, and all the other pieces that you have to do during that time. Sorry, I missed the second part of the question. I'm just going to go back to it. Sorry. Yeah, and during the second, so which round to apply to during the second or third round? Second round, it's totally okay to apply to. The third round, frankly, I'm not a huge fan of the third round. And I'm thinking about the US third rounds, not European third rounds, because they're a little bit different. European schools have a few additional rounds than the US schools do. But third rounds, by that point, most of the class is filled, which means that you have to be, better than the students that they have rejected in round 1 and round 2 to be admitted into round 3. And that's typically very hard to do. But if you are considering an MBA, and I mean, we are in March now, you should definitely look at applying to round 1 or round 2. But I would try to avoid round 3 if you can. If you don't get admitted to round 3 and you choose to reapply, because you're only able to apply in one application cycle, from round 3 to round 1, there is essentially about like 4 months, 5 months, depending on the school, of course, of when you are notified of the rejection and when you have to resubmit your application. And as a reapplicant for most schools, you have to demonstrate what new things you have developed in your candidacy, in what way have you grown since you last applied. And in that period of time, there's not much you can talk about and share. So if you can't submit by round 2, I would suggest if you can, that you apply in round 1 of the following year.
Thank you very much. Okay, I see one question. I'm not sure I understand it correctly. Maybe it's a person wondering if he can work part-time during an MBA. I'm not sure, but maybe you can, you can give us some.
Typically, MBAs are immersive. They're residential. The typical MBA is residential, which means that your curriculum and all the things that you have to do are scheduled throughout the week, meaning that you're not really necessarily expected to be working. However, there are students who do work a little bit during an MBA, but an element that I would consider for you to think about is, of course, finances are really important, right? You can't complete a two-year MBA if you can't pay your rent. Those are important pieces that you have to consider. But given that an MBA is a once in a lifetime for most people experience, a question that you have to ask is, do you really want to take that part-time job and forego that entire experience, that immersive experience that you are paying for, right? If you are going to a top-ranked program in the United States and you're paying $200,000 for your education, does it make sense that you do a part-time job and take away the time from that experience that you are most likely not going to have an opportunity to have again? So that would be my answer. So technically, yes, you can, but pieces that you want to consider before you make that decision.
Thank you very much, Susan. We don't have any more questions, but I see a comment in the chat box saying that it was an amazing and very informative webinar. So really, thank you for taking the time, and you guys, thank you for joining us. We wish you a lot of luck in your academic journey, and hopefully we'll see you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Nelly, and thank you everyone for being here.